Robin. How you doing?
Hi, Grant. How you doing?
All right, it's nice to see you. Thanks for doing this, man.
That's all right, no problem.
Basically, I get to speak to so many interesting people in my day job, and I've been doing so many Zooms, or I've been speaking to people like yourself in the studio or elsewhere, and I just thought it'd be great if I could just record some of these Zooms and maybe get into a bit more detail about how this music is made and stuff. Because I think, I'm sure the Cosmograf fans will be interested, and perhaps fans of audio in general, and just musos, nerds like
yeah.
It's just
something it'd be good fun to do. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, well, congratulations on Rattrapante then. It's your latest album. Is it your eighth album?
It is, yeah.
How do you feel about the response?
It's really pleased with it, really. I think I feel like it was a little bit of a risk, really. It was a different approach, really, from maybe some of the previous ones anyway. I mean, it was 5 songs, but it was a double album, which is a bit strange. I mean, it's quite a long album, but the songs are long. So it's almost like sort of 5, it's 5 very long songs around a central theme. So I've done just about everything I can to make it non-radio friendly and sort of maybe prog-like, but I've not made it easy for myself in terms of marketing it. That's for sure.
Well, the last thing you want is for anybody to hear it. That'd be terrible.
Yeah, that's it. So even down to the level of things like you've got these decisions like you put it on Bandcamp, and of course everybody wants a free track to stream, and you think, well, I'm not sure I can do that because I can't give away a track because that represents a massive chunk of the album, a fifth of the album. So there was all those sort of factors really. Whereas if you're making a standard sort of 10-track album, you wouldn't hesitate to sort of do that sort of thing. But it's been a little bit different on the sort of promotion side of things of it, and trying to think of ways of getting people into it, which has been a bit more of a challenge. But yeah, I mean, it's the Cosmograf fans have certainly taken to it, I think, and it's gone down well.
It has, is it, with the hardcore? It's the sort of...
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, we sort of chose the lead single this time was "I Stick to You," and that was maybe a little bit of a different thing because we had quite a strong female performance from Chrissy Mostyn,
from the Black,
which doesn't always go down well, with all prog fans. I mean, it is a traditionally sort of, with a lot of fans, they can think it's quite a sort of male thing, and I've had a couple of comments like that. So it's been a different, it's been a different dynamic to usual Cosmograf, really.
I've come across that a few times myself, where people.
Yeah, it's not great, really, but it's to me, I just don't have an issue with gender and within music. I just don't understand it. It's not within. It's all about different textures with me, and that's a texture that I thought particularly well suited that music. Absolutely. But for some people, it's a problem, and it's a real shame. Yeah,
that's a shame.
It was only a couple of things, but you sort of.
You've got to rise above it.
Ignore it and rise above it, yeah.
And I suppose the album title Rattrapante is a bit of a, it's not an easily accessible.
No.
Can you just tell me a bit about what it is?
It's based on as you know, I'm a sort of watchmaker and watch repairer by day, and very much a watch enthusiast. So the word actually comes from, it's a French word which means rattrape, which basically means to catch up.
Catch up, yeah.
And in the sort of form of rattrapante, it's a particular type of chronograph that has 2 timing functions. So you start one second hand off and it starts timing, and then you stop it, and it's basically like a split lap feature, if you like, and then the second timer will start, and then it catches up. So what it enables you to do is basically sort of time 2 events within one race, basically. So anywhere you want to get a split time, this is the device that they invented to do it back in 1850 or something like that.
And I'm sensing a metaphor.
So the metaphor, as you probably gathered from most Cosmograf albums, will have some sort of allegory or metaphor, is that it's our interaction with time. So we can freeze time with this, you're stopping the hand of time, and then with another button press, you're catching up to the present day. So it just struck me as a very nice metaphor for how we go through time. We sort of look at an event, and we like to sort of freeze ourselves in that event and time, and then inevitably we have to jump jump out of that period and back to the present day. That was one aspect of it.
Right.
But also running alongside that I was fascinated similarly by the people that seek to bend time in the way that they want to be the first, or they want to be the fastest. So they're almost in conflict and with time. So people that break records really, or do very dangerous things to be the first. So there was a lot of references that I made to people like the Challenger crew, a lot of space disasters, Apollo 1, people like Donald Campbell that wanted to be the fastest on water, but he put his own life in complete and utter reckless danger in order to achieve that aim. So and similarly, people like with the Russian space program, it was their need to be the first was sort of very much overrode a lot of their safety considerations. So there was this sort of conflict and battle, with the space race, with the Americans also wanting to be first, but they had much more awareness of risk, particularly after Apollo 1. I mean, Apollo 1 went spectacularly wrong, but after that, it sort of hastened their need to sort of try and protect their people a bit more. So it's all those sort of issues, really. How a lot of explorers and a lot of people that do these things often do it in complete sort of conflict with their own survival and their own sort of need to do things. So that was really the sort of secondary sort of thing behind it as well.
They sort of see things differently, and so they see time.
Yeah, they have a different view on life. Yeah, it's almost. I mean, as humans, I think we have this sort of primeval need to explore. To sort of, it's almost like a survival instinct to keep the human race going. But the conflict and the irony is that often leads more quickly to their demise. So you've got to. That fascinates me, the fact that you put yourself at risk in order to perpetuate the human race, which it just brings up all these weird sort of existential thoughts. So
moral existential thoughts. That's
really where which these sort of things keep me awake at night. So
yeah, I was going to ask how does that sort of more broad concept apply to yourself? I mean, how do you sort of plug yourself into that?
It's a difficult one, really. I mean, I'm quite a cautious person by nature, really. But I think probably where I sit with that is that I can often live a life where I wish I was doing those exploring things, but I'm not quite brave enough to do it. So I sort of live it vicariously through other means by exploring what they did, or sort of half doing things that are quite exciting, like getting on stage and fulfilling my dreams as a rock star, which was another aspect of to the album as well, because that was really what the opening track was all about. It was about Live Aid and being a 15-year-old boy and then
the 50-year-old man writing this song.
And the 50-year-old man writes the song. I thought that's quite clever because I distinctly remember that 15-year-old going to a party with friends and we all watched Live Aid together and I'm thinking, wow, that's incredible. I want to do that. And of course, life gets in the way and you dismiss all those ideas. But eventually, when you get into sort of 30s and then into your 40s, you think, I need to have a go at this quite seriously. Otherwise, that opportunity is going to be gone. So, and that's what the song's about. It's about looking back at the heroes of those time and being inspired by them and saying, this is my music now. And these are the guys that made me sort of want to do it, and some are gone, and that's a tragedy, So there was a lot of sort of angst in the lyrics as well about the loss of people like Bowie and Freddie and people like that. So.
JFK, return the journey.
tourists. And,
yeah. So I've tried to do the the sort of the non-life-threatening stuff, or at least the stuff that wasn't going to kill me. But although I have done sort of various other things on the way, like early midlife crisis, buying motorbikes and things like that, and which nearly did kill me. But luckily, I came to my senses before that did any damage.
I saw you put that on Facebook. There was a picture of a bike that I think.
That's right. It was something that again got to sort of 35 and thought. I just woke up one morning and thought I want to ride a motorbike, and I just booked literally the next day or something. I booked one of these intensive, Part 2 test courses where you do a week of riding, and then you basically do a test at the end of it. Right? Yeah, and you literally start. I mean, I've never ridden a motorbike in my life.
Right.
The only experience I had was riding a push bike. So I literally started with a 50cc moped on day one, and by the end of it, I was riding a 500cc Yamaha, sort of full motorbike.
So did Mrs. Armstrong have a hand in saying?
Yeah, she wasn't thrilled about it at the time, I seem to remember. But I mean, she couldn't really say much then because her dad was quite a keen biker himself, so she was sort of used to that. But
yeah, my dad too. I mean, he used to ride Nortons and stuff in the 60s and stuff. But my mother always made me promise never to start smoking and never to ride a motorbike. So
yeah, both those things I wrecked. But so after 40, got to 45, and I thought I can't do this anymore. I think it was 45 or probably just over 40. And I'd gone through about 4 or 5 different motorbikes and culminated with the one you saw on Facebook, the Fireblade, which was just too big and too much of a bike.
Through them, you come off them, or
no, just sort of not wrecked them, just bought and sold basically. So I bought a fairly entry level bike when I passed my test, and then that wasn't fast enough, so I went to the next thing, and then went to the next thing, and ended up with that. And that was too much. I realised I just didn't have the talent for it, and I was going to kill myself. So. I thought,
but 4 wheels, you're a bit.
4 wheels, I'm still into those because they're relatively safer. And
it's
more about fixing them than driving them as well. Which I rarely have an opportunity to drive anywhere really with them. So I've still got my TVR, which I love dearly, and I should really sell, but I just. Can't bear to part with it, so it sits in the garage and does about 100 miles a year. So that's my motorbike substitute. Yeah, I'll probably run that for as long as I can anyway.
Do you give the albums the old car tape test? You take it out for a spin and just see what fits your mood when you're driving?
Yeah, so I've never been it's strange. I've never been a great one for listening to music in the car. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I've never had a really good stereo system in the car. But I just find anybody that comes with me driving, they always say, "Why do you put your radio on so quietly? I can barely hear it. It's like whispering." And it's nearly always a radio channel, and the guys just go, like the announcers just whispering. And so I'm not a huge one for.
So many of the musicians I speak to, they're Brits. They're either Radio 4 or 5 Live in the car. They just.
Yeah, it's 2 for me. Radio 2. Everything's on Radio 2 in the house. I don't know why, but which I think maybe subconsciously affected quite a lot of the Hey Man Dreams. Actually, I think because I thought that had a lot of. The songwriting I thought was very Radio 2. For some reason, it was like I think subconsciously it was the Ken Bruce playlist. I think from the 80s was seeping its way into my writing at that time.
They're called Motorway, right?
Yeah, Motorway. That was a classic. I mean, it's very much it was like just a classic rock song from the 70s, and it was a little bit of a pastiche of that, really, but also Melancholy Death of a Gamekeeper. It was
that Radio 2 friendly
piano progressions and things like that. Yeah, it was quite easy. I had this sort of easy listening vibe in it, which quite appealed to me.
I could just imagine Ken Bruce announcing that song on the
A crushing pain, I lose my way. I just fall down into the dark, discovered by a saintly girl.
I remember talking to you for Prog magazine about that album at the time, and you were sort of talking about how that Hey Man Dream sort of fed into your early loves for like Deep Purple and Black Sabbath.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's never really gone away, I don't think. I say the Hey Man Dreams that's it. Yeah, it was very, very much that sort of feel.
But in a modern way.
But in a modern way, yeah, and maybe sort of fusing a bit of, more modern Porcupine Tree and that sort of thing into it as well. So it was never exclusively that. But and then, of course, on Rattrapante, I think I've probably gone back more to the sort of, certainly on the first track, it was very much a rainbow sort of feel to it, particularly with the live. It just reminded me of the way it sort of came out. It was like something off, Final Vinyl or something, the great sort of rainbow live albums of the era, with just a completely over the top Richie Blackmore guitar solos and things like that. So
interesting.
That was the sort of vibe I was going for there. Really.
It actually put me in mind of the first track on The Wall because
okay,
it's the
with the sort of atmosphere setting up. Yeah, I mean there was lots of things that crept into that track really, and of course you got this weird sort of breakdown. The sort of synth section going on it halfway through, which was very different. I mean, it didn't start like that. I mean, it was going to be guitars all the way through, and I thought this is just too relentless. I need to sort of do something a bit cleverer with this and a bit more prog, and that's where this sort of it just all came to a stop, and it's like you're sucked out of the live sort of sound, as it were, with the audience, and then you're brought into this sort of much more intimate thing where I'm now in my 50-year-old self reflecting back on as a 15-year-old, and the electronic sort of music starts to play within halfway through the track. So I was playing a little bit with that sort of stuff.
Yeah. That first "Are You Ready" that you are you gonna, I know you're hopefully doing some live dates later this year. That's got to be the opening track, hasn't it?
That won't be the opening track, unfortunately. I might scream "Are You Ready" anyway, but
I thought you'd written it particularly to just so you can start.
Well, the problem with that whole track is it's absolute nightmare to sing, and I didn't really appreciate it. And I mean, it was supposed to be in the live set. I'd had it in there to certainly to rehearse, and I set it up like with a what I call a karaoke version. I basically got the stems for all the other players, set that up, and just took my parts out. Fired it all up and tried it, and I just could not sustain it. It's so high and so shouty, and it just my voice was completely gone by halfway through. So
right, not the best concert opener then.
Not the best concert opener. It would have been left a bad impression. I mean, if some miracle happens and my voice gets a lot stronger during rehearsals, it might go in as a reserve at the end. But we'll see how it goes. But it's just too difficult to do. But
yeah, absolutely. The Bowie bit I had in mind was excuse me, I'm just gonna double the song list. It's on Memories Lie.
Okay.
And I don't know if you're channeling Bowie on that track at all, but there's some very hunky-dory era Bowie phrasing on that. Was that?
I mean, a lot of that stuff will be subconscious because I'm such a. I mean, a lot of people, have said you really do in places just sound. You're channeling David Bowie in places. And yeah, I mean, it's just subconscious. I think some bits are quite deliberate, but I hadn't noticed it on that particular track actually. So, but I probably am. Yeah.
And I'm going to run another name past you. You and I have talked about this in the past. The opening guitars of 1985 very much of some of my favourite guitar, which is Jeff Beck's work on.
I'm taking that one.
On Amused to Death by Roger Waters.
Yeah, well, that's again you spotted that one because I mean, Amused to Death is one of my favourite albums of all time. I mean that whole thing, not just the Jeff Beck sort of stuff, but the way on that album in particular, the atmosphere is sort of set up with. I mean, that a lot of that is I was doing or trying to copy on things like The Unreasonable Silence as well, just bringing that whole atmosphere in with where you're making the background sounds as much a part of the record and the atmosphere as the music.
Yeah,
and I think it's just a genius piece of work. Yeah,
that's I don't know if it's underrated, but it doesn't get talked about much. I don't know. And I remember, I have a clear memory. I was in college, I was in uni in about 94. Was it 94 it came out? 93. And sometimes the jukebox in our local pub, when they wanted you out, they would play the least popular song on the jukebox.
On the jukebox, yeah.
And guess what came up? Amused to Death, Part 1. And I was sitting there, after a couple of...
I'm staying here all night.
It's not going to work on me, mate.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, even now, and I've been sort of making records for a reasonable amount of time now, and quite into my mixing. I have literally no idea how they made that whole sort of chanting with the "What God Wants" thing. I mean, it's just genius. It sounds like the whole football stadium is just saying it. It's just...
They open those doors, you hear doors creaking open. It's almost like Gladiator when it's like...
it's brilliant. It's just, the sound design is incredible. It's just on another level.
I was just, today I've just listened back through to your whole back catalogue, and, End of Ecclesia was your first.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you probably don't talk about that much, but...
I try not to, really, I have to say.
I liked it. I enjoyed it.
I think the songs stand up okay, but
I think the theme stands up. I think the songs stand up. Certainly the guitar playing and the performances stand up. Your voice, you sound so much younger on that, right?
Yeah, I know. I barely had any understanding of how to use my voice at that stage. But also, I mean, the production is awful on it, and it's something I'd like to fix.
I wondered if you were going to revisit it, but mainly what back then in 09, what was your production? I mean, you're talking to us from the Trees, which is your beautiful little studio in your, is it at the end of your garden?
It's right at the end of the garden. It's like basically a purpose-built building. It's almost like a glorified shed, really. But it's got a fair degree of soundproofing in it.
That's the ultimate treatment. That's brilliant.
And there's quite a lot of gear in here now, as you can see.
Yeah,
but it's just grown and grown and grown over the years. But it's tiny, really. I mean, it's probably it's a very, very odd shape. I mean, the shape where the camera is there is probably no bigger than this. You come through like a sort of tube, and then it just gets wider as it goes. So it's a bit shaped like a trapezium, basically.
So that's the widest point that you're sitting.
Yeah, the widest point is this bit here, okay. And that's probably sort of 15 foot wide at that end, and only sort of 4 or 5 foot at that end. So it's an extraordinarily weird shape.
Okay, so that's now. But in 09, what?
09, it was
End of Ecclesia. Where were you?
It was just in a bedroom, and all I was using was a very cheap Tascam sort of interface. I was struggling with Cubase. I got into trouble for slagging Cubase off the other day, actually, because a lot of people still use it, and a lot of very good producers use it. People like John Mitchell still uses it. Andy Tillison uses it, but I just couldn't get on with it, and I couldn't get it to run at all well on the PC. I was.
I replied to one of your. I think I replied to that to you because I'm on a very amateur level. I use.
Yeah.
It's always crashing whenever I try.
Yeah, it was completely utterly unstable. But that wasn't the problem with it. The problem was I had no knowledge of what I was doing. I mean, I was completely like a lot of things. I just went bull in a china shop. I'm going to record this album and do it myself, thinking it's easy. I'll do it, no problem at all. Of course, I produced something, but it wasn't that great. I mean, I even played all the drums myself. I had an electronic drum kit, Roland drum kit, and I just took the stereo out from the drum kit, put it into the Tascam desk, and basically played all the drums on the record as well. So a lot of it is out of time. It's not great. It's there's a lot of issues with vocals not sitting right, not being sung properly, and all sorts of production issues.
Do you still have the stems for it?
And unfortunately, I've lost them.
Oh, no.
I've lost the original files because it was in Cubase.
Yeah.
And I've probably had about 3 or 4 different hard drive crashes since then, as you do back in. I mean, this was 2008. Yeah. I would literally have to start the whole thing unless they miraculously appear somewhere when I'm rooting through stuff. I'm going to have to start the whole thing again. But so it's been a bit of a barrier. I mean, it's something I'd love to revisit and reissue just to get it to the standard of where the others are, really, retrospective.
Well, I was going to say, because after that, there's a pretty steep...
yeah, I mean, that was the bit where I sort of then managed to, realise the error of my ways and realised I needed some instruction and some training, really. And I sort of started scouting around people that I knew and making contacts on Facebook, as you do. And doors led to Mr. Aubrey's
Rob
door.
Aubrey.
The famous Rob Aubrey.
I love Rob.
Yeah, who, as of course everybody knows, is utterly brutal when it comes to criticism. Yes. What
was the first cutting thing he said to you when you were doing when he just done his duty?
Well, when I'd got to a stage because this came quite late, and I thought I'd written most of it and recorded it, and I'd even mixed most of it. And I thought it sounded okay at the time, and I took it to Rob and said, "Can you, just help me master it?" And he sort of chuckled when I said, mastered it. And he said he took one listen and he said, "Well, there's two ways we can do this. I can master the record for you and just not say anything, or we can go through it and I can tell you exactly where you've gone wrong." So, and that's where it all started. We basically went through track by track, and he was incredibly generous with his time, but he basically was completely merciless with his criticism, and basically said, the first comment was, "None of this is in time." This was my initial attempts at mixes.
Well, to be honest, that I was going to say, Rob, he's brutal for a reason. He wants you.
He is, and it was the best advice. I mean, and the other thing he did was he told me what was wrong with it, and I went away and tried to fix it and kept bringing it back. He said, "No, you haven't done this right. Do this, do this, do this." I went away again for a couple of weeks, came back, and then we just went through that process over many months, and eventually. I managed to give him a record that he could master, and that was the first sort of version of When Age's Done Its Duty.
Okay, well, I mean, and that meant you had
so that went from the production level down here, it went sort of somewhere up there quite quickly.
And that fed into your playing as well, because you had to be.
Yeah, alongside that, there was a lot of improvements that I'd made along the way playing wise, and I got other people in as well. I'd at least had the sense to find where there were performances I'd done that this just won't cut it. It's not good enough. And I got hooked up with Steve Thorne, who people remember from way back, really, from Into the Ether and those sort of records. And he was quite a big name in prog back in sort of.
Was that through Rob?
Yeah, that was again through. I think it was through Rob. Yeah. I think Rob was doing Steve's stuff at the time.
He's a big...
Rob's famous for being like a bit of a matchmaker, really, for a lot of that. Well, you know all the stories about Big Train and how Dave and, well, both David Longden and Nick, NDV, were found by Rob and slotted into the,
all of them, all of them. I mean,
so, very, very much a matchmaker. So finding people and that's where Steve got I got Steve to do the vocals on the title track.
When the party music stops, we start to age. Our faces rearranged by fear and pain. We lose what we hold dear. Our bodies crumbled more the longer we stay.
And various other people got slotted in, and Bob Dalton did the drums. That was through me.
Did you know Bob from It Bites before?
No, I didn't. I can't remember how I approached Bob on that one, actually. Such a long time ago.
Okay.
But we got talking about, because Bob, you imagine Bob to be like this sort of drummer from It Bites and very, very 80s, but Bob's influences as a drummer are very much early 70s and people like John Bonham and people like that, and Keith Moon. So we got talking about that sort of thing, really, because we had a lot of common interest in just, great drummers of that era.
Yeah, of your... Are you an It Bites guy?
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I'm one of these people that... There's been a lot of talk about the, remixing the albums to get rid of the whole 80s sound. I think that's a terrible mistake. I love the 80s It Bites sound. I think that's that is the absolute joy of it.
Yeah.
The production is incredible on Once Around the World. I pulled it out the other day and just having a listen because I bought this new CD player. It was an old Marantz. Well, it's not a new one; it's an old one, a Marantz one. And I just thought, I'll give this a go. And I was completely blown away by the quality of the audio, and just the production again. And there was no, that is of its era. I don't think you can mess with that stuff, really. It's just fantastic.
How
could you improve it? But to me, I know a lot of people said, yeah, but it'd be great without the 80s production. No, that's a mistake. Don't go there. It's the beauty of it. It's of its time. And it's a lot, for me, it's like putting a Tesla engine in an Aston Martin. It's not, I've got big things about that sort of stuff. Don't do it. You're robbing that particular piece of art of its place in time.
So it becomes a chimera of different
that's
periods.
it. So I love that era too.
But the Man Left in Space, that was the third one, and that feels like the one that made you start taking things quite a bit more seriously.
Yeah, I think that's the one that sort of, if you like, sort of cemented the Cosmograf thing. I think it's been the best-selling album out of all of them, and still is now. And it's the song that gets the highest streams on Spotify and everything else.
Yeah, I was looking at that.
So I think if there's any song that defines Cosmograf, that's probably the one that's going to be the track that everybody knows or that's a fan of Cosmograf anyway.
190,000 Spotify plays as of today.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. Pulled up
for a song about isolation and alienation. It's pretty good.
But spare a thought for the man you left in space. He lost the human race. He stretched too far. The man you left in space.
There's a lot of sort of places to rest your mind in the story going along, I think, maybe, and I think that's what maybe intrigues people. Yeah,
I think so. And the people I was listening to today, and I was thinking, it's a bit Major Tom, and it's a bit also put me in mind of Downey Jr. at the start of Avengers Endgame. I don't know if you've seen.
Oh, okay. My son's a big Avengers fan, so I've probably seen quite a lot of that as well.
The opening of the Avengers Endgame, and he's sort of floating out into, and he's doomed basically. The food and the air are running out, and eventually gets saved. But it's like that sort of vibe. I think in Prague there's a lot of astronauts left out in space. It's quite, like you said, like quite a time-honored theme, isn't it? Something.
Yeah, there was a lot of sci-fi viewing going on by me at that stage. I mean, one of the films that really inspired me actually with the whole story and the music as well. Actually, was a film called Moon.
David Bowie's son.
David Bowie's son, ironically, because it was almost as if that was a thing. But
that's the best birthday card I ever got. When I was working at a production company, they grafted, because my surname's Moon, obviously, so they grafted my head onto Sam Rockwell's body on the poster. That is quality.
Good link, yeah.
It's a fantastic film, and I can totally see how it keys into.
I think a lot of the treadmill stuff came through that actually, with the whole the song "Beautiful Treadmill," where there's lots of scenes where he's sort of running on the treadmill, and I thought, that's a really good metaphor for just endless sort of, endless time in space.
When you're saying your song titles, I'm hearing them in Ken Bruce's voice now. I can't do it. Just that would be a wonderful thing to get.
To get Ken to announce them.
But then it sort of struck me that capacitor after that, which was a lovely concept about a spirit core, that capturing the human spirit. And then the unreasonable silence. After that, I sensed that you put quite a lot of stock into that, spent quite a lot of money on it. It didn't quite catch fire the way perhaps
it didn't. That's exactly that. Yeah, I was disappointed actually with unreasonable silence. I thought it at the time. I thought it was the best stuff I'd done, and I as you said, I'd put an enormous amount of time into the backstory of it, and also the the sort of sound design of it. I'd spent a lot of time creating this sort of whole atmosphere for the thing, and there was quite a number of voice actors that I'd employed to work on it as well,
and quite a lot of musicians on it too.
There's a lot of musicians, really good guys. I mean, NDV was on it, Dave Maros was on it,
folks.
Yeah, and it was, and I'd just done the whole thing, mixed it and mastered it myself, and I was really, really happy with the sound of it. And I still think it's a fantastic album. I just
why do you think it didn't click?
I think it was just a step too far with the too difficult to unravel. I think was one of the things. It just didn't have any immediacy to it. There was no song that I think. Sorry, I missed that.
Can you see that now yourself? Can you?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It was probably too prog, really. Not so much prog in terms of music, but it was too prog in terms of concept.
High concept.
And it missed the. I think all the great concept albums of the time have got, even though they can be quite deep and quite, sort of conceptual and really sort of, in the mind, as it were. They all have, all the successful ones will all have something you can pull out of it, which works as an immediate sort of single. Now, I'm thinking like one of my favourite concept albums, The Wall. It's got, Another Brick in the Wall Part 2, which everybody knows, and it really, really works as a piece in its own right. I don't think The Unreasonable Silence had that. It didn't have that one track that was, people could hook from it, really. And
the Radio 2 single.
The Radio 2 single, exactly. Even Amused to Death, What God Wants. I mean, that's catchy as hell. You can, certainly in terms of a prog canon, it's a catchy song. But I didn't have those catchy songs within The Unreasonable Silence.
So, and it feels like Hey Man Dreams was a little bit of a reaction against that. You sort of went back to basics in a way.
Yeah, I just wanted to. I mean, everyone, I try and do something completely different, really. I just sort of scream from one extreme to another, I think, try to. I think it'd be a complete disaster. I'd find it quite upsetting if someone said that this album just sounds like the previous one. That would be a complete and utter failure for me. So,
yes, but then there are certain textures and sounds that are characteristic of.
Yes, I think there always will be. I can't. That's difficult to balance, and I can't get out of that box, really. I mean, I had this idea that certainly with Mind Over Depth that I was going to make a prog metal album, and completely naively I thought, I'm going to make this so heavy and out of its prog box that it's going to upset loads of people, and it's just going to sing, but I want to do it because this is the album I want to make.
Now I see this ugly force, denying choice and changing course. A million choices count as none. A million choices count as none.
I sort of got there a little bit, but it suddenly dawned on me that there are certain things you just can't drop as an artist. You can't, it's if Steve Hackett tried to make a prog metal album, or if Haken tried to make a symphonic album, it wouldn't work, because you'd always have those signatures that will just keep coming back, and you're limited by that ability. Yeah.
What are your signature sounds, you think, or have been told? What people expect from a Cosmograf album?
I think that certainly there has to be
Bit of whittle.
Bit of sort of atmospheric guitar.
A high concept.
I mean, it keeps coming up. People say, "Oh, Gilmour like guitar." Keeps coming up as a phrase in reviews, but I don't mind that. That's fine. But
I can hear a bit of. I mean, it's hard not to play a mid-tempo like A minor GF solo and not sound like Comfortably Numb, isn't it? It's
yes,
hard,
it is.
You know.
Yeah.
But I can't. There's other parts of.
But also things like cathedral. I mean, I'm a big sucker for organ sounds. I love putting cathedral organs into records, which I think just about every Cosmograf record's got a cathedral organ in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So that sort of thing. But I think again it would be a bit of a failure if I hadn't got some sort of sound design into there and some sort of atmosphere running alongside the music, which is really I think probably the hallmark of the whole thing, really. It was less so in Mind Over Depth, but it was still there.
Well, you say that, but what was I thinking? There's a part of, I think it might even be A Million Choices, and it's the sort of the very synthy sound. I think you were talking about it earlier. The sound design. Yeah. Is it that track that has that warping sort of? Yeah.
Sort of morphing, sort of art synth in the beginning. Yeah.
What I really enjoyed about that, having heard it again today, was when certain prog artists try to do that sort of thing. It's almost like they've they bought a new box and they pressed the button, like the techno button or something.
Yes, yeah.
And it doesn't fit. It sounds off the shelf, sounds crap. But it's interesting you call it sound design, because I imagine that's you. And maybe we'll go into this sort of thing a bit later. But it's you sort of taking something and making it your own, tweaking it so it's your own sound and stuff. Yeah.
It's sort of it's completely. I sort of consider it like a separate entity to the music. Really, I'm not interested at that particular stage. I'm not interested in chord structures and lyrics or what notes I'm using. I'm thinking about the atmosphere that it creates. So I'm thinking more in terms cinematically rather than musically. So I think that's an approach I've probably taken through many of the albums. Really, I have this sort of almost like my own film running in my head or my own video, and I'm trying to come up with something that fits that imagery in my head. So that to me is more about sort of the sound effects, the sounds that, and trying to put the listener into a certain position. In time or also in time, but also in a place as well, time and place.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, because a lot of the albums have a concept or an overarching theme that lends itself to that.
Yeah.
Very much so. Oh, by the way,
like the Heyman Dreams, for example. Oh, brilliant. That's good.
It's an official replica of the official crew T-shirt that the Jaws crew wore.
Oh, okay. I was making it. Brilliant. Yeah. I mean, as you know, we had a big interview on that, didn't we? The whole album. But I love the film, and I wanted to get some of that fear, and particularly the water. The fear of the water was a big thing within that album, and I again used that as a metaphor for being mental, being suffering with anxiety and depression. It was the beast will come out of the water and get you, and it was this whole imagery of being crushed by the depth of water, and so again, I think all of my albums will have that sort of there'll be that metaphor somewhere within there.
You were going through the mill a bit when I spoke to you for that album for prog, in terms of your mental health and anxiety.
Yeah,
how are you doing? How's that?
Loads better, to be honest. I mean, it's in a much better place, and I think that sort of album was good therapy, if you like, as well, because it forces you to examine some of the things that are going on in your head. But it's loads better since. I think probably since then I've learned to understand what's going on and how some of the reasons why I've been thinking a particular way over a number of years, and getting to the bottom of the thought process really, and unpicking that.
Have you been having help, or is that something you've done yourself?
I did initially, but curious. I never found it particularly useful. But I think I had the wrong sort of professional help to start with. And what did really help me was talking to people that had gone through it themselves. I found that invaluable. I almost went on this mission to talk to people that absolutely gone to the end of what their tethers. And one guy a friend that had gone to a position where he'd literally tried to commit suicide, and it was just fascinating to see how he'd then gone from that lowest position and then rebuilt his life into a position where he was extremely happy and where he was. And to me, that was far more useful to understand how he made that journey and got from that position to another position where he was really, really happy with what was going on in his life.
So that through listening to his experience, that gives
and using some of his tips, really. So it is, as I would do if I was in a similar way that I'd gone to, when I was having trouble mixing my album, I went to Rob Aubrey to help me with an expert. You go to an expert, and I think that's where, if I'm making some sort of a little bit of a, maybe a political statement or something, not so much or a statement about how the health services work in that regard. The problem is a lot of these professional things that get offered are well-meaning, but they don't give you that. A lot of people that are administering and giving that instruction haven't been there themselves, and you don't quite get that, that real sort of
understanding of what you're going through,
first-hand experience and the understing. And I think
that's. Obviously, these people are very well trained and
exactly, yeah. And I don't dismiss their work, and I know quite a few actually. I know several therapists that do incredible work, and I'm absolutely in awe of their skills. But for me, it just worked better when I could sit down and talk to somebody that had literally been there, and understanding seeing the similarities of where I was with them, and them sort of giving me a hand to try and see the wood from the trees and try and sort of put some different thoughts into my head, really. Yeah.
Did any of that feed into Rattrapante or not?
Yeah, no, a little bit. I mean, each one again. I think Memories Lie maybe was grabbing onto that nostalgia, if you like. There's particularly with the lyrics there, the lyrics sort of we're trying to grab onto that or hook into that feeling from that time. But I guess it not quite as, obviously a lot less than Mind Over Depth anyway. I didn't feel the need anymore to explore that avenue within the music anymore. I think I'd moved on to other things by then.
Yeah. Well, that sounds healthy.
Which is good, that's a positive thing. So I'm not, I don't think anybody's ever cured or anything like that within suffering these things, because it's something that you I believe that my personal belief is that everybody has some sort of mental health issue, however slight. The problem is it's when it starts to interfere with your daily life or it's causing you a great deal of upset. That's the point. You don't want to get into that position, and I think just being much more aware of your mental health is the important thing. But
I think,
and I wasn't. I just got to a point where I couldn't function. It just stopped, and I just the wheels had just come off basically. So I'm much better now, but also I'm armed with better tools now and an understanding of how not to get in that same place again. So
that's great.
That's the difference now between now and before all that happened. It's like I've got a first aid kit, and I've got the tools to all the monitoring equipment. Maybe is a better analogy. I've got the monitoring equipment now to say you're going back in that direction. Come, stop. Think what you're doing. Whereas I didn't have that ability before.
So as well as a prog rock star, you're also now a label head.
Yeah, yes, for my sins, yeah.
Yeah, Gravity Dream. Got an interesting little repertoire building up.
Yeah, it's growing very slowly. I mean, again, something that maybe happened by accident. The whole background to Gravity Dream really came about where I just wanted my own music to have a little bit more credibility in terms of interface with the press and everything else. It was just a sort of initially a move to try and be a bit more glamorous than saying you released your own music, which I think can be a little bit of a turn off.
From my personal experience, when I write my column, Prog Monthly, and a lot of that stuff's self-released. and it's amazing the psychological difference, which is what you're saying, is the difference it makes when something's coming from a label. Even for not for me and for punters, I think it's sort of you there's an implied badge of quality, isn't there? Yes. Somewhere there, and that's I was very conscious of that, and I'd had with One Age It's Done Its Duty, I'd had a deal with a record deal with F2, and I wasn't. I just didn't really like the whole record deal thing, so I made a decision that I really wanted to do my own music and just be a master of the whole thing, really, end to end. But then going alone, it became apparent that was the label that was always going to be applied, the self-release label. So I just came up with this thing. Well, why don't I just call it Gravity Dream Music, even if it's just me to start with? Lovely name.
But it literally within a month of that happening, I was talking to the guys on who then became the Bardic Depths on the Big Big Train forum, and they were looking for somebody to mix their album, and someone had mentioned my name as being potentially someone that could do it, and I sort of looked at it and thought, well, I actually really like this album. I mean, the demo was rough as hell. But the writing was really, really good. And I thought, I quite like this. And this would be maybe a good idea to sort of not only sort of just start me off on the whole mixing other people's stuff, but also there's an opportunity here for me to release it under the label. So that became the first sort of release from Gravity Dream, sort of many months later.
There is the light. There is the reflection. There is the reflection. There is the shadow.
I mean, labels, that being a label covers a multitude of sins, but what sort of form does it take between you and your artists? So is it you might just mix for them and then release under your... It's
a bit of everything, really. I mean, there are some, like we've got the Bardic Depths and also Deck Burke, which we've just recently signed. So Deck.
Awesome. So he's Deck Burke of Darwin's Radio,
Darwin's Radio, X-Cross, Audio Plastic, Dilemma, all those bands.
What was that band? He was signed to Bad Elephant for a while. He had one with them.
Yes, he did. Solo ones, and he was signed to F2 for a while as well. So, and he's just come from F2 as well.
Fantastic
actually,
guitarist, great singer,
brilliant guitarist, amazing singer. But Deck had an issue where he wanted somebody to mix his album. Again, I think someone had mentioned my name, and he quite liked the sound. He liked the sound of the Cosmograf stuff, and sort of approached me and said, "Would you be interested in mixing it?" And of course, now it's a bit more of a sort of a going concern in terms of a business. I inevitably sort of had to give him a price to mix it, and unfortunately, as with a lot of struggling prog artists, the budget just isn't there to do that, really. So one of the things I've offered with Gravity Dream is that I can actually build the whole mixing and production costs within the deal, the record deal. So it's just a nice way of doing it. It just gives a number of people access to that, to getting a record and getting it produced properly and getting it released. So it works on that level with the Bardic Depths and Deck, but also as a straight release where people have done their own mixing, their own mastering, and that would be and artwork and everything else. And I'm literally just doing the deal for them in terms of getting it out there and getting it to my sort of little team of distributors and dealers, and also getting it to the press. So
you do the press side yourself, do you?
Yeah, sort of writing the press releases and sort of getting people interested in reviewing it like yourself, and that's the whole thing, really. And also sort of doing the online promotion with things like Spotify and
the streaming time.
It takes an enormous amount of time. This is the problem, and it's a double-edged sword, really, because it I do like doing it, and it's really good. It's fun to sort of. It's almost like you're sort of fulfilling dreams a little bit, because you're a lot of these people don't have, don't really know where to go, don't know how to do it. But also I've built a little bit of a back end of logistics with e-commerce. We've got a very good website now, and that all works really well with ordering, and we send it all around the world. So where I'm sort of constantly working at home, I'm able to do that. But it's difficult. It takes an enormous amount of time, and I'm conscious now that I'm maybe growing a little bit too quickly. So I'm backing off a little bit on the signing. So. Because also I want to carry on doing lots of my own stuff as well, my own projects. So I don't want to be too busy.
You need to get somebody on a YOP scheme to start.
I do. I need some very cheap labour to come and help me do it. So I mean, it's that's where it is really. And
have you, as a label head, have you had people send you demos? Still with the impression that the record deal is the key to riches, or are people savvy?
There's two. People come from all sorts of weird sort of corners when they approach. I get quite a lot of things coming in, and I mean, certain times you're just absolutely blown away by the level of talent that nobody's ever heard about. I mean, there's the last signing for this year we're doing is a band that. We're just that, and I'd never heard of any of the musicians within the band. I'd never heard of the name of the group or anything like that. And they sent me the record. And I just couldn't believe it. I mean, the songwriting was astonishing, and everything just sounded fantastic. And it just, I've got to get this released.
Who are they?
I can't tell you yet.
Can't you?
Well, literally, the ink is not even dry on the deal. So
it's so good, I can't tell you.
It's so good, I can't tell you. But there will be an announcement very, very shortly.
Oh, okay. All right.
But they're very, very of the sort of 80s. Not so much, maybe not even prog of the 80s. They're more of the great bands of the 80s. There's a lot of Simple Mind, a lot of Duran Duran, but with a proggy sort of edge to them.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit of it bites as well. So I mean, again, I seem to get attracted to these bands that speak of their time again. I mean, I was really, really like Grumblewood because they just sounded so, it was like putting on a record from 1971 or Jethro Tull with completely flutes and violins and everything else. So
what I see on the telly is nothing real. Telling me stories of how I should feel. Won't you play me a melody of your life? Tell me a story of something real. Draw me a picture that I can feel. A picturesque postcard of life.
and even with Deck is a real, massive guitar head of the late 80s, the Vai era, the Satriani era, and all those sort of things that really appeal to me. I mean, the guitar work on Deck's album is utterly out of this world, just brilliant. Yeah.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that. Do we know when that might be out?
That's coming out September the 24th.
Oh, is it all done?
It's all done, all mixed, and I had a great pleasure of mixing that album, and it's one of the best experiences of my life was actually mixing that album. It was fantastic, really good fun, and it sounds really good, even if I do say so myself. But it does more to do with Deck's amazing playing than anything else. But yeah, it's pretty good.
Did he record at the Trees, or did he?
No, he recorded it nearly all at home. He's got some other great guys that are on it as well. Christopher Gildenhauer's on it, the bass guy from Pain of Salvation, people like that. Lots of sort of previous. Scott Hyam on drums, who drummed with Pendragon. He did an incredible job on the drums. Very upscale, quite rocky, sort of double kick drums on it. Great. It's a good album, really good album.
Okay.
So I'm really looking forward for people to hear that.
Maybe I'll try and nab Deck for one of these.
Yeah, Deck, he's such a humble guy, Deck, and it's one of the battles with working with people. It's I think every musician has a little bit of a thing they're insecure about. It's...
What's Dex?
I think he's Dex. I mean, Deck just doesn't realise how good Deck is. I think that's the thing, and there's certain parts that you'll hear, and you think you need to bring that out more, do more of that, Deck. And he's, well, I'm not sure about it. No, it's fantastic. Do more of it. So you're acting almost like a little bit of a producer as well, and I've done that a lot with the Bardic Depths as well, because I've been quite brutal with them and said that just won't work, and I feel a little bit guilty because I'm sort of impinging on their creative process a little bit. Or feel like,
I mean,
but I'm saying, I really think you need to do this and do it. Take this bit out.
Firsthand that from Rob.
Yeah.
And Rob sort of steered you.
Yeah.
It pays it'll pay dividends.
It'll sound better in the end. And I'm sort of not trying to be dictatorial about it at all, but I'm trying to
help them.
Maybe act as a producer, and in a little, as much as someone who's mixing the record, and say, that chorus needs to be longer, or this solo needs to be changed, or whatever. So those sort of issues,
too close to the material, they've heard it.
Yeah, I think so, and they need another ear, and hopefully they're sort of respecting what I'm saying to them. But sometimes they, we sort of disagree, and I back down. But that sort of arrangement comes in. I can't remember. We were talking about more about. Yeah. Oh, do I get another? Yeah.
I mean, you're a lone wolf, basically. I know you've got Kyle Fenton, who's your regular drummer now, but it's basically you, isn't it? Is there somebody who's acting as a second pair of ears for you?
There isn't. No. I think it's maybe...
It's going quite well.
maybe I'm too much of a control freak in that regard. But,
right.
You might have spotted a flaw there. I am to some extent sort of saying, listen to me, but I don't want anybody else to listen to my own stuff. It's really strange in that regard, but
horses for courses.
Yeah.
And I want to talk to you about your gear, your arm audio as well, because. But just before we get onto that, you are playing live later this year, aren't you?
Yeah.
That's definitely as definite as anything could be.
It's as definite as it can be. I mean, the original plan was to do 3 gigs. We were going to do Summer's End, and then we were going to do a 400. I think it was a 400-seater as a one in London, Powerhouse as it's now called, and then Manchester Academy.
Was that
which was the other
Gunfly?
gig. With Gunfly, with Rickard's band. We'd set all that up and done all the sort of promotion and everything for it, and then obviously COVID hit.
So that's cancelled.
So it just became completely impossible for Rickard to travel. So we're down to 1 gig now, basically, and it's complete and utter madness putting the preparation that we are in just for 1 gig. So the plan is that at some point we will add maybe at least 1 gig, another gig to it. But I think the real action will probably start next year in terms of putting a series of shows together. But I don't think we'll ever be a major touring concern, but I want to get to the stage where we're doing at least 4 shows a year.
So this is Summer's End, is it?
Yeah, so Summer's End this year we're playing still, assuming it's still on.
So that's also, aren't they? They're on the bill, aren't they?
Yes, they are. If they can get here, it's all down to sort of international travel. So I'm guessing that a lot of the bands that are international bands that are still signed up for Summer's End are going to still run into problems. But
Amy Burks is there, I think.
Yeah, can't think who else. But
okay, but you'll be there. So So who's in the Cosmograf live lineup?
So we have Lee Abraham's playing sort of second guitar. I mean, we originally when we did Cosmograf live, we had me playing keyboards and acoustic guitar. We had 2 other guitarists. We had Lee Abraham, Luke Machin. We had a guy called Steve Dunn, who was a very old friend, who also appears on several of the albums, playing bass, and Kyle, of course, on drums.
And Andy. Andy Tillison.
That was quite an outfit, but I've decided this time not to go in that direction. I mean, there's a couple of reasons for that. One, I want to keep it lean and mean for the first year, really. And also, I wanted to play more guitar, just being completely selfish. I wanted to be more of a front man and just didn't want to be sat behind the keyboards playing a lot of the background stuff.
I was at that gig. It was Celebrate at the Assembly Halls in 2006. Was it?
It was 2014.
2004. Sorry. 2014, not 2006. That's ridiculous.
But 7 years ago. Yeah. So that's the last time I played with Cosmograf. Yeah.
Your laptop went on the fritz, and that really threw it. But it sounded really good until then, and after. But I got the impression it shook your confidence a bit.
It did a bit, yeah. And
it was really good though, for what it's worth.
It was very complex, and the whole setup was a bit of a nightmare, really. And again, an enormous amount of preparation for just one gig. So I've decided this time we're going to do things differently. So I'm going to be playing more of the front band with the guitar.
Got to be done.
So basically, because I just want a bit more of the life to playing guitar.
It's your gig. You're allowed.
It's my gig. Yeah, it just felt a bit odd, really. I thought, well, I was just going for comfort factor, I think, in that gig, and sort of think, well, I'll just sort of shrink into the background, let Lee. I mean, Lee's very versed. I mean, Lee's played thousands of gigs he's a very much a weekend sort of pub and club musician, so he's very versed in that role. So I thought I'll just let him just do it. But I'm fighting him this time.
It's your band, Robin.
Yeah, I know. So I'm pushing him to the side this time. But he's still there doing guitar as well. So we're sort of sharing the duties there. But a lot of the keyboard parts will be shoved inevitably onto backing tracks. And they're not all the prominent keyboard parts I'll be playing. But a lot of the sort of background atmospheres and things like that will be shoved onto a backing track. And there's going to be four of us as a very sort of cut down band, basically. So, we'll have Carl on drums, Lee on second guitar, me on guitar and keyboards. And there's a new guy called Ali Martin, which is a guy that Kyle knows that will be playing bass for us. So that's the plan going forward, and we're going to do Summer's End like that, and probably a couple of other shows, and see how it goes from there, really, and see how it develops.
Some more shows next year.
Yeah, I want to. I think I just want to get to the stage where we've got to be doing a few shows per year, I think. And I'm also doing something else I'm trying this year for the first time. Is I'm doing house concerts, which I've got 2 house concerts booked in December, which is a bit of a new thing for me, because I've never really considered myself as like an acoustic type artist, singer-songwriter type artist. But it's that sort of, I guess after 8 albums, people tell me that my songwriting needs that sort of intimate approach. So I'm going to give it a go and try that as well.
Are these Cosmograf fans who've booked you?
So these are Cosmograf fans that have got together, basically booked me, and it's this sort of, I think, Francis Dunnery was a big sort of innovator of this whole thing, house concerts. It sounds a bit naff to start with, but when you actually look at it, it's actually quite interesting, because you get sort of 30 to 35 people in a house, and you put sort of a 2-hour set together, and it's very sort of informal and very stripped down. You take the songs at their essence, or all your sort of well-known songs, and you strip them down and play them acoustically, and you give a very sort of intimate experience to the audience, and it works financially as well for musicians. I think it's a really good thing.
Well, it's a lovely way of doing it. And God, just imagine if an artist that you loved when you were
exactly. You're literally within feet of them, and you've got that experience. And I'd love to. Yes, there's lots of artists that I'd like to see in that sort of way. Yeah. People like Tom York, I'd give my right hand to see Tom York do that sort of thing.
God, I'd sell a kidney for that one.
It gives me shivers thinking about it. Maybe there's something in it. I think it's a good thing, and it's not particularly COVID friendly at the moment, because obviously there's a massive social distancing issue. But I think by Christmas, hopefully everybody will be double jabbed, and hopefully the risk will be much less, and that will be a thing. But I think it's just a really great idea, and it just.
And I can really imagine some of your stuff will benefit from being paid back to just acoustic as well.
And also I'll be doing exactly, and I'll just take a keyboard and a big keyboard and a couple of guitars, so it'll be quite a sort of. And also I'll be doing a couple of covers as well, so that'll be different. So songs that maybe have inspired me or I particularly like, that maybe people wouldn't necessarily be aware of. So that sort of thing.
Well, I wonder what are you playing with, or can't you tell me?
Well, I can tell you I will be doing a Bowie cover, as everybody says. it sort of I guess my voice lends itself a little bit to that, and I've always been inspired by it. So I'm going to be doing a cover of Space Oddity certainly for one. So that
fits nicely, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That fits in every possible way. That's great. The Bowie thing, it's just every now and again there's a little inflection. I'm not saying you sound like him or anything. Just every now and again there's a bit, the Anthony Newley. It's like, in a good way.
I think that comes from all the. If I sort of think about the vocalists that I particularly look up to and really like their work, they're not great technical singers, but they have this incredible charisma and way of expressing themselves in their voice. So I'm talking about people like, Bowie, and people like Roger Waters. I mean, Roger Waters wouldn't get through the first round of X Factor or anything like that. But to me, he is one of the ultimate vocalists, because he has that thing where only the person that wrote the song can actually convey that. All the anger, all the vitriol within his lyrics is coming through his voice, and you just can't replicate that or change that really. And again, people like Tom York. I mean, you think Tom York is that anybody who's not familiar with Radiohead and think, well, I can't understand a single lyric that guy's saying, but that's his style. That's his. He doesn't sort of put that sort of expression within the words. He's sort of almost mumbling through the words, but it's beautiful. It's just his way of doing it. So it's singers like that have that really quirky and maybe sort of not a technical classic approach to singing that I like. I sort of gravitate towards.
I've just got visions now of Simon Cowell giving Roger Waters the thumbs down and him rapping his Fender bass around.
Yeah, wouldn't go down very well. But there's lots of people like that just wouldn't get through. You think about a lot of people I like in prog, and they just wouldn't, singers in prog that I really really like, and they just wouldn't get anywhere within. And that's all to the good of the music, really. To me, that just speaks volumes about how we've been conditioned to sort of, think it's clever to just get on stage and just run through these horrendous sort of vocal gymnastics that these people do. You think, oh God, you're just so tiresome. Sing the song.
Yeah, that melisma they all do is just.
Yeah. Oh no. It started, I guess, with people like Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston, wasn't it? And it just became like a shredding show with the voice, didn't it? And everybody wants to sort of be better technically.
But Amy Winehouse and Adele clones as well. Just sound that sort of jazzy thing that, and they can't quite put it off. It's become a trope, and it just sounds really affected and artificial.
It sounds cliche, doesn't it? And I guess I've just gone I suppose because I'll never be able to sing like that anyway. I mean, I don't have the ability to sing like that. So if anything, I've tried to say, well, I'm giving the honest voice of a songwriter. That's my approach to it. I recognise I'm never going to be the best singer in the world, so I've just tried to sort of put that approach through in my music.
Even when you listen to somebody like Jimmy Webb, for example, he's not a lot of people might think he's a fantastic voice, but it's if he sings Wichita Lineman or something, it's the singer singing the song they wrote brings a level of authenticity. That's
exactly the thing.
Yeah.
I
know what you mean.
So that's where that is really. Yeah. So I think again, that's what the house concert's about. It's just giving people that experience or opportunities to sort of sit there and almost sort of you're singing the song in the raw, the very essence of it. So I think it's quite an exciting thing to do, artistically, really.